move on and get started with our program. So I'm so excited to have our speaker. She spoke for us in 2021, I believe. And Amy does an excellent job talking about insurance for small business. So Amy brings with her over 15 years of professional experience to the Frost Risk Management team. Her team provides resources, including tools and training to protect your company's bottom line, employees, customers, vendor relationships, and investors. Amy has a financial degree from McCombs School of Business at the University of Texas at Austin. And so without further ado, Amy, it's all yours.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for letting me come back and be a part of this again. I love what you all are doing. I love anything that supports women and following our dreams. I mean, as women, we carry it all. You know, we carry all the mental load for our families. We just carry so much as women, and to have an opportunity to have a dream and live it out, and an opportunity to get a grant and actually like pull it off. I admire you all, and I love the Jane Nelson Institute for being so supportive of women in our community. So it's nice to have a very small part of that and talk about insurance, which I'm sure everybody's thrilled to talk about at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday night. But I'll try to make it a little bit fun, and we'll keep it really, really high level. And I'll try to bring it down to like what is really needed when you're a startup small business. You know, what do you need and what do you not need? It can get a little bit overwhelming and confusing sometimes, but that's why, I'm happy to be a part of it, because I love answering questions and happy to be a resource for anybody. So let me share my screen. Let's see if I can figure this out. Bear with me. All right. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, very good. It's kind of weird because then my screen goes blank and I'm not able to see all of you. But anyway, that's what I look like. That's me again. I come to you from my home tonight. So it's full of a bunch of teenagers and a 10-year-old and a dog and a husband, and we'll see how it goes. So bear with me if the dog starts barking or somebody knocks on the door. They're under strict orders not to bother mom. But anyway, you know how it goes. But I'm with Frost Insurance. We're a brokerage firm. So we actually work with over 50 different insurance companies to try to find the right insurance for your particular type of business. Different businesses need different types of insurance. What a bakery needs is different than what a management company needs, or a marketing and consulting company. Very different types of insurance. And different insurance carriers specialize in different classes of business. So as an insurance broker, what my job is to connect you with the right insurance carrier, and then we get you quotes. And then I'm just paid commission from the insurance carrier. Yeah, none of my clients pay me a fee to do insurance. So that's just kind of how it works. Here's a way to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll leave that up for a second, and you can find me there. I try to post risk management information as often as I can. So would love to hear from you, and let me follow your stories as you start and grow your business. So the things we're going to talk about tonight, a little bit about risk management that really is tied to insurance. It's one and the same. We're going to talk about, when and what you need for business insurance, common types of business insurance, and then the importance of developing your risk profile. And I'll explain exactly what that means here in just a few minutes. And I'm going to make sure we have got my time going. Okay, there we go. So what is risk? Risk is exposure to danger or harm. It's the chance that something bad could happen. I mean, everything in our lives involves some type of risk, and there's different ways you can manage your risk and handle your risk. But when we think about insurance and risk, it's just kind of the first thing to think about. Exactly, what is risk, especially as it pertains to your particular type of business. So what we want to consider in business insurance is your exposure to loss. You've got some investment money, I would guess, tied up in what you're doing. You could lose your investment, right? It could just be a bust, and unfortunately, you've lost your investment money. Something that you do could cause some property damage, or you actually have damage to your property, your business property. That could be a loss. Somebody might sue you. It's another type of loss. It's just important to kind of start thinking about those things. You might wonder why I chose this picture to put up of all these folks in a pool. I was horrified as an insurance person that in the time of COVID, a company called Swimply was launched. And they thought this was a great idea. If you have a swimming pool in your backyard, it was kind of like Airbnb, but your backyard swimming pool. And you maybe you heard of this, or maybe you did it or used it, but you could actually, rent out your neighbor's pool for a few hours and swim for the day or night, or have a party, whatever you wanted to do. And there was a cost associated with that. Well, there was also a tremendous exposure or risk associated with that. If you don't have an actual business insurance plan, then your homeowner's plan would not cover something like that. You've accepted money, you've started a business, essentially, is what they're going to say, by leasing out your pool. So just one idea of the things that we do that can cause exposure to our families or harm to our bank accounts that we might not have thought about. So this is one that horrified everybody in the insurance world. What are the biggest threats to your business? So kind of think about, what you're doing, the business that you're starting, and the biggest threats that you might see to your business. I mean, natural disasters, absolutely, that could happen. Maybe you've got a warehouse with inventory in it, or a bakery, where you're baking your product, and there's a fire or there's a flood. A natural disaster could happen that would be a threat to your business. Man-made disasters can happen, accidents, theft, acts of violence, anything on that nature, man-made, could be a threat to your business. Social engineering, what that one means is if you have a lawsuit and the jury, bumps up that punishment to your company because maybe you were negligent and did not run a motor vehicle report on somebody, then you put them behind the wheel of a car and they killed somebody. I mean, a terrible accident like that. Social engineering is the culture and community's way of kind of punishing you. That is a threat to your business, believe it or not. Technology or cyber crimes, I'm sure you've heard about that. Those crimes have all been very up since the year 2020, and we had the pandemic. They still continue to be tremendous. Folks getting all types of malware on their systems, many different types of cyber liability. And then, of course, the pandemic. That was something that we never saw coming, but now we are more prepared for it if this ever happens again. Just, thinking about different types of threats that you have to your business. Those are the 5 big ones. So, we're going to talk about, are you prepared for that? The SCORE group is a nonprofit association that's dedicated to helping small businesses. And they say that 40% of businesses never reopen after a disaster. So taking the time to prepare for the worst case scenario, or things that you hope never happen, that does make a difference, and it is worthwhile to do. So how daring are you? I think if you're willing to start a business, you are daring, and I admire that. I think it's great to live your life as an adventure and take risks and just think them through and do the best you can to minimize the risks to your investment and to your families. So how daring are you? There are 4 components of risk management. You can avoid the risk, right? You can say, if I'm a retail boutique operation, maybe I'm going to just do, and I'm worried people are going to steal from me. I'm worried my employees are going to steal from me. I'm worried the public is going to steal my inventory. So I'm just going to sell stuff online. I'm going to avoid that risk completely. And I'm now going to be an online vendor. That's one way to limit your risk. You can mitigate and prevent risk from happening. So say I am again that retail shop, and I'm selling maybe women's clothes and cute little things like that. Maybe I'm still worried about theft, but I put up cameras and I make sure I hire really quality people. I'm running background checks on the folks that I'm going to work with. I'm going to limit my risk by doing the things I can to, help limit it. Risk retention. I know it's a risk. I'm going to retain the risk, so be it. I'm going to spin the dice and hope that nothing bad happens. You cannot buy insurance for everything. You can't limit every type of, possible exposure to your business. Risk retention is one other way to handle it. And then the last one, which is what we'll spend our time tonight talking about, is risk transfer. And that's when you're transferring the risk of your business to the insurance company. And you have an insurance contract with the carrier that says, if these things happen, you're going to pay for it. So what you want to do is come up with a preparedness plan. And Donna Lisa has actually a copy of a plan that we're happy to share from Frost Insurance that we provide our clients that helps you kind of come up with a brainstorming exercise for your business to determine, identify what exposures that you might have, to try to evaluate those, make them easier to handle or less of an exposure, how to protect your business. And then you kind of want to test those theories out, test your plan, and make sure that you're prepared. So this is what it looks like. This is the crisis management plan, and you all will have access to make a copy of this if you'd like, if you're interested in it. It's just kind of a helpful tool, we think, as you're planning, as you're looking at your business and possible exposures or risk-related things that you can think about to mitigate. So insurance, what is it? So that again is when you're transferring the risk, and it's a promise of restoration. So what an insurance carrier is going to do is promise to make you whole again. They're not necessarily going to buy you a Mercedes if you, ruin your Honda Accord. They're going to make it right and buy you, the right type of Honda Accord, if you will. It's a guarantee for compensation for specified loss. So you might insure, $10,000 worth of property that you have at your home, maybe, or in a warehouse that you want to make sure you have insurance for. So you would specify that on your policy, in a return for payment of premium upon illness or death. Liability often includes defense dollars. So with insurance, and we're going to go into this in a little bit, we talk about liability insurance and property insurance being the two main ones for small businesses. So that's just something to think about as we talk about insurance. And what is it not? It is not a maintenance contract. So it's not for your wear and tear on your vehicle, right? I mean, everybody knows that, but it's a good reminder. Insurance does not cover all scenarios. Insurance policies are very thick and complex for a reason. They have a lot of exclusions and a lot of add back insurance clauses that are very, very complicated and confusing, which is why it's nice to work with a broker who has read that and understands it all. There's no coverage for fraud. So in the event that maybe your business partner committed fraud, unfortunately, insurance is not going to pay for that. There's no coverage usually for past work that you've done. So insurance is forward facing. If you bind a policy today, it's going to cover lawsuits going forward or property damage going forward. Insurance is not a way to make money. I mean, folks have tried for centuries to figure out a way to make money on insurance. Usually they're caught. Carriers are pretty slick to notice that early on. And it's not only protection for extraordinary events. It does include protection for things like slips and falls or minor flood damage inside of a building. So maybe that's helpful as you start to think about what insurance is helpful for and what it's not. You cannot buy insurance for fraud, but you can buy insurance for lots of crazy things. So let me see. Let me get up my notes on this. Okay, you see America Ferrera there. She's now the face of Aquafresh. Aquafresh bought insurance on her teeth, her smile, for $10 million. So they're protecting their investment with a partnership with her. And if something happens to her smile and teeth and she's no longer able to be a spokesperson for Aquafresh, then the company will get awarded $10 million. I always think these are funny. My favorite one is Tom Jones' chest hair. If I had a way for you all to guess what he's has insured that for, it's pretty amazing. He's got it insured for $7 million. And no, he's not my client, although that I would get a kick out of that. But he's got his chest hair insured for $7 million because I guess he thinks that is so critical to his career that if something happened, he would get back $7 million. David Beckham, his family has his legs insured and any kind of life-threatening injury for $151 million. So if he was not able to play soccer anymore, he would get his family would get $151 million. Incredible. Heidi Klum has one leg insured for 1.2 million and the other leg for only 1 million because she has a small scar on that leg. Anyway, I think she looks pretty great there. But if something happens to her legs and she can no longer work, she's going to get a nice payout. But you can sell insurance to anybody for anything. Alien abduction insurance. There are over 20,000 Americans who purchased this plan. Something of the likes of if there are aliens that take them away, somehow their family will be compensated. So insurance is sometimes a little fun and a little bit silly, but you can buy insurance for most things, but not fraud. Why do I need business insurance? Lots of reasons. We live in a very litigious society, unfortunately. I mean, people, look for ways to sue each other all the time. Insurance would help pick up the slack for something like that. Business insurance would minimize your financial risk. You've worked so hard to make it to this point, so it would help prevent all your investment money from going away if you had the business insurance. Contractual requirements you'll find as your business grows. Your lease will require insurance. Your vendors might require it. Your lenders absolutely will require it. They're going to require you to provide something called a certificate of insurance that your insurance broker can provide for you. But you have to make sure that you have the right insurance in place for these different vendors and groups that you'll be working with. Some insurance is mandatory in Texas, like automobile insurance in Texas, as you probably know, is mandatory. You absolutely have to purchase certain limits of liability automobile insurance in the state of Texas. We'll talk about workers' comp in a minute, but workers' comp is not actually required in the state of Texas, but we recommend that you carry it. Business insurance is not covered under your homeowner's policy, your renter's insurance. So many years ago, your homeowner's insurance would add a little clause in there and just add your business name to your homeowner's policy. We're not seeing that anymore. Now, personal insurance companies are requiring you to carry a small, business insurance policy outside of that. So if you've been relying on your homeowner's insurance to maybe cover you for your business because it's operated out of your home, it will not. Your homeowner's policy has an exclusion in there specifically saying that it's not covering your business. Business insurance also protects your personal assets. It's a peace of mind. Absolutely. Just maybe you can sleep a little better at night knowing you've transferred some of that risk and you're not taking it all on yourself. And it can also be an employee benefit, certainly in the case of workers' comp insurance. When do I need it? I think it's kind of hard sometimes to determine when you need it. Certainly, if you have a vendor requiring you to have it, that's a good sign that now's the time. That's usually when I see applications come in for business insurance. If you are purchasing some assets, maybe some inventory, and you want to insure that against theft or fire, flood, all the different perils, that's a good time, I think, to start purchasing business insurance. When you have customers, that's great. And if you have a website, then you definitely have a cyber exposure and you're going to want to think about purchasing business insurance then. It really is a critical piece of starting and managing your own business, is knowing how to buy insurance and when to buy it. Most common types of business insurance, you can see them listed there. Property, general liability, lots of different types of liability insurance, commercial auto, workers' comp, umbrella, cyber, and management liability. So I work with all these different types of business insurance. They're all very, very common. So we'll talk about each one briefly. Don't worry. Excuse me. Let me just make sure I'm on my notes here. All right. So it's estimated that 75% of small businesses are underinsured by at least 40%. So that means most small businesses are in jeopardy of, paying out a lot of money if something bad happens to that business. And most of them, as we learned earlier, just don't ever recover from it. So you think of insurance as an investment in your future and helping protect your assets. Okay, I'm a big fan of The Office. If anybody else is, just hopefully you'll appreciate my next few slides. Property and business interruption insurance. So property, think of this as your first party property, things that you actually own. You might own a building where you're operating out of. Contents, that means like inventory or personal property, furniture, computers. You might be storing property of others. You might have property off site. Maybe you've got some of your physical property in a warehouse or storing it, at another business. You've got electronic equipment. You might have a server. You might have lots of different computers for your staff. You might have property in transit that you're shipping. I think somebody mentioned shipping cold items. That's a transit exposure. And another thing you want to think about is loss of business income. So if something happens to your building or your property, maybe it's covered by, it's got to be a covered cause of loss, like a flood or a fire or theft. Well, once that happens, now you've got to replace your property, but there's also a consequential loss that can occur, an indirect loss, which is your loss of business income. So now that you don't have inventory, you don't have customers, right? And now you've got a business income loss, and you're not getting your revenues in that you're used to receiving, and you've got extra expenses incurred. Maybe you've got to set up shop somewhere else temporarily. Well, business insurance policy would provide for business income, and it would provide for the amount of property that you chose to insure. So that's one piece of insurance to think about, the property that you actually own. And that can, of course, include inventory. Be aware of deductibles. I mean, it might be, $1,000 deductible for certain things. It might be, a 2% deductible for maybe a wind or hail loss. Deductibles, we're seeing those continue to rise in Texas, especially in Tarrant County, for anybody in Tarrant County. But Texas, for insurance carriers, is non-profitable for writing property insurance. So we're seeing it escalating in premium, and carriers really bumping up deductibles. So it's something that we always talk about and we're very aware of. Flood is typically not covered under a property policy, and it cannot be added to it. We have to buy a separate flood policy. So we'll always want to ask, what flood zone you're operating in, or we'll pull that on our end. We have the capability to do that to make sure we have flood coverage, because it's so disappointing when a flood occurs and an insurance carrier denies it, and somebody thought that they had coverage for that. That's always a tough day. So just things to be mindful of. So that's your first party property, things you own. What about third party claims, right? So this is called liability. If your product causes bodily injury to somebody else, or they claim it causes bodily injury, or it causes property damage at all, you get issued with a lawsuit. That's where your liability insurance comes into play. And there are many different types of liability insurance. The general liability insurance you may have heard of, and that's that third party product liability if your product causes bodily injury or property damage. And it also includes premises liability. So if somebody is in your parking lot, or somebody is in your storefront or your home, wherever you're operating, and they slip and fall and claim to have an injury, and then you've got to go through the insurance carrier to solve that issue. There's also some advertising injury in there, which might be really helpful for the gal that was working with the marketing company and helping with that. That's something to know, that there is some advertising injury built in there. In the event that maybe somebody accuses you of using their logo, and now you've got something that looks very similar to their logo, and they've sued you with this, and you receive a cease and desist order to stop using that logo, something along those lines. Most general liability policies do include defense costs, which is wonderful. So in the event that you are sued, you just hand that over to your broker, who will hand it over to the insurance carrier and say, please, hire the right attorneys and make this go away, or make it right. If there's a financial injury, maybe, let's see, there was one other that made me think of the financial injury. The parole classes and the educational classes, maybe there's just a financial injury, right? Your class is likely not going to cause bodily injury or property damage. You don't really have a product, but you likely have a contract. And if you fail to live up to your end of that contract, and somebody claims they have a financial injury because of it, they paid you, but you didn't do what you said you were going to do. So now they've lost all this money, and now it's in court. You better make sure you have what's called professional liability insurance. Lots of different types of liability insurance. There's food recall insurance for those out there working with all those yummy chocolates and bakeries. Something to consider. Lots of different types of liability insurance. General liability being the one that everybody's really wants to make sure that you have. Commercial auto insurance. This is another area of insurance that has just really increased in price, and I'm sure you've seen it on your personal auto insurance. But if you own a car for your business, right, and you buy a car in the company name, which is always nice to do, right? So you buy a car in the company name, or you rent a car in the company name, you might lease a vehicle in the company name, or borrow. Anytime you're doing that, you want to make sure we've got the right commercial automobile insurance in place as well. Non-owned, I've got that red and kind of bolded down at the bottom. This is a big one, actually, and this is a big exposure for frost insurance for me. I'm on the road all the time in my own vehicle, but I'm driving on behalf of Frost, right? I'm going out in the community, visiting clients. Love that, taking folks to lunch. I have a really fun job, and I'm driving my own car, and I do carry insurance for my car, but what if I didn't? And what if my insurance lapsed? Or what if I only carried the bare minimum and then I got in an automobile accident while I was driving on behalf of Frost? Well, Frost better have non-owned insurance on me. It's like $200 a year endorsement that we put on commercial automobile policies, and it is very, very important. If you have any employees that might be driving their own car on behalf of the company, that you have what we call hired and non-owned insurance on your commercial auto policy. So something to think about. If you have any employees that start driving on their own, something to talk about. Workers' comp, again, it's not mandatory in Texas. It's very inexpensive coverage for most classes of business. I've dealt with some horrible, sad workers' comp claims through the years with some high hazard businesses, death claims. I've had several of those. Really sad. I think the most recent one I had was a 19-year-old who fell over on a forklift and was crushed to death. He was not trained on how to use the forklift. His family has now sued my client, rightfully so. He wasn't trained on how to use it, and he died. So workers' comp would cover a claim like that. If somebody's working on the job, maybe carpal tunnel syndrome, lots of typing, and now I've got an injury. It pays to make that injury, it pays for medical costs, what I'm trying to say, for the injury, and then lost wages if your employee's out of work for a while because of that. And I put on here, don't forget family. Family businesses can be a little bit tricky. Folks, nothing will ever happen. We won't ever come back to the company. Well, it's nice to have workers' compensation just to prevent those kind of conversations, which can go bad pretty quickly if somebody feels like they really were, injured on behalf of the company or on the job. And again, workers' comp for most classes of business, it's very, very inexpensive. Umbrella liability, this just provides you excess limits. A lot of families now purchase umbrella liability for their home and auto. I do, but I've got 2 teenagers out there driving. So if something happens on the road with one of the teenagers, I've got that automobile liability policy that's $1 million, and then another policy that sits on top of it to provide excess limits. And businesses do the same thing. And a lot of our contractor companies, like if they're working at all at DFW Airport, will require them to carry at least $10 million in umbrella liability. And that's usually when you start to see, higher limits of liability. I work with a very large homeless shelter. They carry $20 million in umbrella liability. It just provides added financial protection in the event of an auto claim or a general liability claim. It's nice. It's also kind of a peace of mind coverage to have. Cyber liability insurance. That's a big frown. Cyber liability is scary stuff. I mean, we see them almost every week, I would say, just in the Fort Worth Frost office. We just have so many cyber claims. There is cyber liability insurance that you can purchase. The best thing you can do to protect your company with cyber liability, the 2 things that you have to even purchase cyber liability is multi-factor authentication. So you want to make sure if you're connecting to your server or you're connecting to your business on your phone, that you have some kind of protection on there. And most companies, it's just like a toggle to say multi-factor authentication, which is known as MFA, just to toggle that on. it's kind of a pain. Like, I mean, I work for a bank, so I've got to put in a code every time I get on my phone, but I'm used to it. And it does protect the company immensely. And you want to make sure you have a way to back up your servers, back up all your information to an iCloud or another computer that's not connected. And you want to do that as often as you can. If you're collecting any personal identifiable information, anything on people that might say their credit card information, employees' date of birth or social security information, you want to make sure that you've got that very protected and that you've got it backed up offsite. In the event that you wanted to purchase cyber liability insurance, it provides first party and third party expenses. So in the event that your system is completely shut down and you've got to buy all the hardware or software, there's coverage for that. But then it provides third party expenses like ransomware, which, believe it or not, it's crazy. I mean, the amount of ransomware claims that insurance carriers pay is really impressive. Travelers Insurance is the largest holder in the world of cryptocurrency, and they pay out these criminals all the time and negotiate with them. It's just wild. But cyber liability insurance can save you at the end of the day if you have a problem. Management liability insurance. These are just some other types of insurance as you grow your business. I don't think you necessarily need these things as a startup operation, but these are available as you grow. Employment practices liability is one. This is not covered under general liability. It's not covered under workers' compensation. For instance, if an employee files an EEOC charge and claims harassment or discrimination or wrongful termination, that's the kind of thing that you would have to defend yourself if you don't have this insurance. And they are very expensive claims to defend because they're very specialized attorneys that deal in this type of work. So many of the companies I work with, which are mostly middle market to larger companies, do purchase management liability insurance. I also work with a lot of nonprofits, and they do purchase directors and officers insurance, which protects their directors if the directors are sued because they, for many things, for any kind of a wrongful act, actually, it's covered. And it protects the directors of the company, their personal assets. So if a director is personally sued because of something they've done managing the company, well, the company will provide the insurance and pay the claim under directors and officers rather than asking their director, who's likely a volunteer, to pay that claim. Crime insurance is also available. That's like employee theft coverage. Sometimes that's really essential to have. Keyman life insurance, just another thing to think about if somebody is just crucial to your operation and if something happened to them and it would be a huge detriment to the company, like the company could probably go under because everything was dependent on this one person, you can purchase Keyman life insurance. It's actually a life insurance policy that a company purchases, not an individual. So the company would purchase it on, this wonderful woman who's running the organization that they feel like is irreplaceable. The company pays the premium. If something happens to this maybe executive director, if you will, then the company receives a benefit from that accident as well. It's also a way to do succession planning for family businesses, which can get pretty complicated. But if you have a plan where you're taking over maybe your parents' business, maybe they're retiring, or you plan to move your business into the next generation, oftentimes those succession planning conversations involve Keyman life insurance and cross-purchase buy-sell agreements. So not going to get into the details of that, but you've got my information if that's something that you ever have, you'd like more information on. I'm happy to provide it for you. They're kind of fun to work on. I think I explained a lot of this, which is kind of the way it works when you're dealing with an insurance agent or a broker. Just so you kind of understand how it works. We're paid by the insurance companies. What I look at my job as doing is to help you develop your risk profile. We talked a little bit about that at the beginning and what that means. And that's me telling insurance carriers that you're doing all the right things that you need to do to limit your exposure. Maybe you're running background checks on all the employees that you have. Maybe you have a really strong employee handbook. You've got a great cybersecurity plan. What I do is tell your story to the marketplace, which is the insurance carriers, in hopes that it gets you better rates. Insurance carriers The underwriters have a lot of leeway in the rates or the premiums that they assign to companies. And so my job is to try to find you the best rates available. And we do that by providing all these risk management resources so that at the end of the day, you have them and your exposure is decreased, your risk is decreased, and therefore, hopefully, you're getting a better insurance deal. Insurance carriers and agents provide claims handling resources. We have a claims department in downtown Fort Worth. They do an awesome job. Every day we get claims coming in. What do we do? How do we file a claim? Well, I just send them over to the claims department and Mark helps them out over there. I talked about risk management resources and best pricing. And you always want to look at too, like, what is this insurance company? There's so many insurance companies out there. And a good agent, and most agents will only work with insurance carriers that are best rated in the business. There are parties that rate insurance carriers. So we want to make sure that we're placing our insurance with carriers that are actually going to pay the claim. That's important. So I think that's all I've got. Look at that. I'm right on time. So anyway, I encourage you all to be daring and, keep at it and be smart about what you're doing and reach out anytime. If there's a way that I can help you or, connect you to people that will help you, I would be so happy to do that.
Awesome. So we did have a couple of questions.
Great. Let me see if I can figure out how to get out of here.
Well, we see you. You're out. You're out.
Yay, that was so much information so fast. I'm sorry for that.
No, that's okay. So Nicole wanted to know if you have inventory at your home, can loss to this inventory from theft or disaster, will your renters or homeowners policy cover this?
Maybe, possibly for first party property. You want to make sure it's scheduled on your homeowner's insurance. So I would call whoever you bought that policy from and say, hey, I've got $10,000 worth of inventory or whatever the amount is, and see if they can schedule it on your policy. That's a great question.
And for everybody asking for her to show her contact information again, we'll get that. Yeah. Kay wanted to know, at what point should you consider obtaining workers' comp? Like when you have it, would you consider that at one employee?
It's really up to you. Since workers' comp is not mandatory, you're not legally required to purchase it. And it really depends on what that employee is doing. It's going to be, if it's like a clerical employee, maybe somebody who is working behind a desk all day, it's very inexpensive to purchase it. But that means also probably the workers' comp risk is not very high. I'm happy to talk through those kind of scenarios because it's hard to know, when to purchase it and when not to.
Right. So at what point should someone consider adding commercial insurance to their car?
They should add commercial insurance to their car only if the car was purchased in the name of the business.
Okay.
So if you purchased a car in the name of your business, which can protect your a lot of times folks will want to buy, purchase separate assets in the name of the business because there's some protection there for your personal assets, right? If the business is going to be sued if you're in a wreck, not your family.
Okay. Dee wanted to know under what instance does wrongful termination pay out?
Only if you purchase what's called that employment practices liability insurance. So that is the only insurance available that would pay out something like wrongful termination or harassment, anything like that. Okay. You have to have employment practices liability, and that would pay the defense costs on that, as well as any settlements that, and juries pay out. I mean, juries very much, insurance companies want to settle those claims because they're very, very expensive because juries punish companies for that frequently, but now more than ever.
Sammy wanted to know if she could purchase the Key Man life insurance on herself.
No, but you can, the company can purchase Key Man life insurance on you, or you can purchase life insurance on you. That's a little bit complicated. If you're the main person in the company can buy insurance on you, which means if you died, then the company would get a payout. So you kind of want to think through that scenario. why you'd want to do that. If you're looking just for like your beneficiaries, like your family, you'd be better off just purchasing like a term life insurance policy and not a key person life insurance policy.
Okay, great. And, you know, again, a lot of those are, you know, an opportunity to talk to either you or somebody else and decide if that's the best thing for you to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And every scenario is completely different.
Yeah.
It truly is. It really is. And I don't mean to scare everybody. That's just my experience and working in this world for a while.
Yeah. Adrian wanted to know, is the value of your inventory on the cost of goods or the retail value?
It's on the replacement cost. So what it would cost you to replace that inventory. So that might be, that's probably not the retail value. You could probably purchase it cheaper than whatever you're selling it for, but it's on what's called replacement cost. So if that inventory were all stolen, you know, $20,000 worth of inventory were stolen, what is it going to cost you to purchase that again?
Okay. We're back on the commercial insurance for your car. So what if you use your personal car to travel for your business?
And you're the business owner?
Yes.
Then you probably don't need any particular types of endorsements for that. If as long as you're making sure that you buy and carry the correct amount of personal auto insurance.
Okay. Then Jennifer asked, the insurance required for government contracts as a contractor is normally what, and what's it for?
It depends. Federal government contracts have some protections that don't require you to have insurance. It's really interesting. But state contracts, they're all different. And there's going to be a section in the contract that is going to tell you exactly what type of insurance you have to have and exactly what limit you have to have. And we review those all day long on our team. The clients will send over contracts all the time. Do we have the right insurance? You know, can I sign this? Are you going to be able to provide that certificate proving it? We want to make sure that we're doing what we have to for contracts, but they're all different. They're going to require at least $1 million in general liability, which would be its standard policy,
right?
And likely some excess coverage as well.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Any last minute questions for Amy?
I'm so grateful for these questions.
They're great questions. We always have great questions.
It's a lot to think through. No, it's a lot to think through. How do you find so many minutes to think?
We did have one. How do you find employee insurance for your company, such as benefits and life?
Oh, yeah. We have a department that does that at Frost as well. What I do is property and casualty insurance, but my counterpart, Megan, she'd be happy to chat with you. You can email me if you'd like, and I'll introduce you. But she does provide group benefits like dental, life, vision, medical for companies.
Awesome.
Yeah, great question.
Any other questions? Going once? Twice? Perfect. All right.
Y'all are great sports here on a late Monday night. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amy. We appreciate it.
Hey, reach out anytime.
Yes.
Take care. I wish everybody the best.
All right. Thank you. That's all we have for this evening. Next Tuesday night, we have Rebecca Smith. She's coming in to talk about business entities. And which one is for you. That registration is open. If you're a grant winner, I'll send that information out to you next week. Tomorrow I will send out the replay and the resources. Amy's already given me all of the that risk management sheet, all of that stuff. So I will make sure that you get that. And if anybody's a grant winner and has any questions, you can stay on if you'd like. I will do my best to answer. And everyone else, will see you next week.